Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, program Inside 20 with Ashok Vyas. And you see behind me Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressing August Congress, both houses in USA. How was the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi? You talk to people on phone, whosoever you are speaking to, there is something exciting that they have to share, they feel. And personally also, I felt very, very good, charged, as well as proud to be a part of the nation from where a leader like Prime Minister Narendra Modi comes and makes the whole world aware about what India stands for. And there is much more nuances, including India's growth story. Let me take this opportunity of welcoming my panelists. First, someone who was present in the Washington, D.C., my friend Mohan Wanchoo ji. Mohan ji, namaste. Welcome.
Namaste, Ashok ji. Thank you for having me on the program.
And we also have Dr. Nitin Saraswat ji with us, joining us from Jaipur. Of course,
Namaskar, Ashok. Thank you for having me.
yeah. So we will talk about Prime Minister Modi's impact on emotional level, on the way it made people more excited about India, whether this is CEO or a common man, and overall the kind of warm reception that Prime Minister Narendra Modi received at the White House. But let's begin with you, Mohanji, being in the Washington D.C., which was buzzing with Modi Mai Vatavaran. Talk to me about your first impression uh, from the scene itself. Yeah.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Ashok ji, for having me on the show. Modi ji's visit, was characteristic in his usual style, of charisma. As you know, Modi ji is a charismatic leader. He appealed to the Indian crowds. He appealed to the U.S. government. All in all, it was a very, very impressive trip. It started with his address at the United Nations to the at the International Day of Yoga, where he enthralled the audience in New York. Then he flew to Washington D.C., where he had President Joe Biden and his wife Dr. Jill Biden welcoming him, and they had a wonderful and a very warm welcome for him that has been accorded to him for the first time with the official parade and such. Um, Needless to say, the Indian diaspora at the White House was absolutely enthralled. It was raining in the morning, so it was not very sure what would happen, to the ceremony on the White House lawns. But the weather gods cooperated. So when it was time for the official ceremony, there was no rain, and the weather was absolutely beautiful. There were hundreds and hundreds of people on the White House lawn, clapping and very joyous, to see our own Prime Minister, addressing the audience, and it was absolutely, a wonderful experience and a heart-touching experience that Prime Minister Modi touched the hearts of all the Indians that were present there.
So we'll come back to Mohanji and we'll go back to Washington DC. But let's go to India. Nitinji, what we heard from all important personalities, including CEO of Twitter, Elon Musk, and several others who, after meeting Prime Minister Modi, said, I'm Prime Minister Modi's fan. Everybody had good things to say. Of course, there are a few things which you will say every time, but look like these people were genuinely responding to the feeling and the promises which they saw in Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, let's look at it from the way it was being presented by media in India, especially his meeting with Elon Musk and other CEOs, Nitin.
So, in India, it is like the media is divided into two parts. One is media, which is being alleged, which is allegedly called Godi media or Modi media, which is always presenting a very nice picture of the things. And second is which claims the media section which claims to be presenting the so-called right picture, but actually they're anti-Modi. So in India, when you switch on the TVs, it's like TV sets. You switch from one channel, which is pro-Modi, to the another channel, which is anti-Modi, and you see two very different stark pictures. But in general, most of the media houses covered it very nicely, and the average Indian is very happy that one of our prime ministers, one of the heads of our country, is being greeted and given that kind of an importance after years and years. It is so surprising that most of the people in today's generation may not even remember that till from 70s till 90s, there was not even a single visit of any president of United States to India. And even whenever we were being scolded by the presidents, our heads were not treated as equals. And now, after 90s, the scenario has all changed. And the way Modi ji has taken the image of India abroad, I think there are very less people who will argue about it that he has done a great service to the nation, especially the image, the way the India is being seen and the way India is being treated worldwide. It is actually a huge lift, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And now let's look at Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit from the lens of an entrepreneur like Mohan Wanchoo ji. And I must say, what he accomplished in 3, 4 days here requires months of study for you to actually process what kind of impact it is going to make. And Mohan ji, in that context, you have different central ministers also addressing press conference, including Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, highlighting the kind of implications of the agreements between India and USA for employment generation, as well as cooperation in several foreign investment and far-reaching cooperation of India and USA as far as cyber security and digitization, etc., is concerned. So I think it was a power packed visit with multi layered conversations in the presence of the delegations. And we have seen Prime Minister Narendra Modi's administration following up on most of these issues that came. Uh, let's just look at it. What is the important take home in terms of the concrete achievements that you see would result out of this visit, Mohanji?
Sure. So I feel that all in all, it was a very successful trip. In terms of the bilateral engagements that came out of these 2 days of meetings, certain I'll just highlight a few of them that pop up to the surface. The aircraft deal, where aircraft engines, fighter jet engines, will be manufactured jointly in India, is a very very important agreement that both the governments have reached. As part of this, aircraft engines will be manufactured in India with the US know how and the Indian technology and high precision labor force. Another agreement that is very important and groundbreaking is the agreement to manufacture and assemble chips and semiconductors in India. Again, this is an industry where a lot of work has been done in India already, and I think the Indian technology industry is at the cusp of taking the advantage of the U.S. expertise in manufacturing these chips and semiconductors. Another area of quite a bit of importance is drones. India will purchase 31 drones from the United States as part of these agreements, where we'll be able to rely on these drones to perform surveillance, to the level that has not been possible up until now. Um, as Prime Minister Modi himself mentioned, there, in addition to these a few engagements that I mentioned, there was a atmosphere of total cordiality and warmth between the two countries. Prime Minister Modi went on to mention that in his previous visit, he had Navratra fasts, and just like this time, President Biden had thrown a state dinner in his honor, and he was very concerned that Prime Minister Modi was not able to have any dinner. So he asked Modi ji several times, will you not have anything to eat? And Modi ji said that it is for religious reasons, that I'm observing these fasts. But he profusely thanked President Biden for hosting the state dinner for him, etc., etc. So the point I'm trying to make is that this visit was very successful, not only from the lens of these bilateral agreements and agreements, to forge, ahead in technology. For example, there's a very important space deal that has been struck between India and the United States. And the work will start next year in 2024, and will focus on the International Space Station. And that's just the beginning. From the International Space Station, there'll be many other programs where India and the US will jointly work together in the area of science and technology, etc. So the visit was very successful from a agreement perspective, and also from the perspective of having very, very warm and cordial relations between
Very good.
India
Very
and
well. Yeah.
the United
Yeah, I
States.
appreciate Mohan for highlighting some of the key achievements from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And let me get to the emotional side of it. So there are some tangible results for which you would scrutinize and see plus minus for both nations. And in that context, also, I think Nitinji, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was quite balanced. So while he was appreciating what India is likely to gain by XYZ agreement from USA, what USA is going to gain. He also highlighted several areas where Indian entrepreneurs are key to generating employment in America in several states. So here was a man who addressed not just with conviction, with self respect and self esteem. So when I say there are some tangible, intangible thing is it fills you with a sense of pride and additional confidence, whether you are a startup in India or you are an entrepreneur looking forward to doing business with India. So talk to me as a life coach how we undermine this sort of a positive wave which gets generated by uh, the presence of a leader second time to this august house that you see behind me. And people are still counting how many applaud, how many times they were standing ovations for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So talk to me from that perspective, the subtle impact which is also going to have far reaching positive results.
So, a country filled with self-pride, its citizens definitely get benefited by that. And as Indians, we have been, we can be accused that we have never taken enough pride in being Indian. And especially when we are abroad, we always feel as if, being an Indian, like the Indian passport never had been that kind of valued passport that it is today. I still remember in early 2000, I was in Sri Lanka. I was stuck, and my friend was facing some troubles. And when I suggested to my friend, let's go to Indian embassy, he said, no, no, they will not help anything. They will not be of any help. So, like a country like Israel, where the citizen can very, very well, they know that their country will do anything to save a life of a citizen. It's the pride that one takes in the country. It's the pride that my country is being valued. And I think even if, as the opposition says, that it's all the optics, I say even if it's all the optics, it is worth the optics because it is filling the Indians with that much needed self pride, that self confidence that yes, we belong. There is a leader who actually takes us to the center stage. Even if it's a false narrative, I like this false narrative. I would love every Indian to believe in this false narrative, though it's not a false narrative. But even if I say if it's a false narrative, it's much better than having a narrative where Indians are looked down upon. Where because you are an Indian, you would not be able to stand up to an American and say, "Hey, I'm an Indian and I'm a proud Indian, and I know I bring value to America also." So that kind of spirit, when I talk to Americans who are in Indian Americans who are in America, or when I talk to Indians who have been across the world, last 7 years, I definitely see a clear change in the way they look at themselves, and they feel proud, and they feel very confident, and they feel as if their country has their back. And I say it's a beautiful change.
So I think I also feel sometimes you get into a sense of beautiful silence just by the feeling that, oh, here is the Prime Minister of India who is talking about the clarion call of Indian sages and sharing with US congressmen that Vasudeva Kutumbakam or truth is one, and sages refer to it by different ways. Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. You would, at least I wouldn't imagine that an Indian Prime Minister would come and bring that human side or all embracing aspect of Indian culture in such clear terms, along with several important references. I just quote Prime Minister Modi, a small reference, Mohanji, where he said, Mr. Speaker, this is him speaking in the Congress, saying, more than 15 years ago, Prime Minister Vajpayee stood here and gave a call to step out of the shadow of hesitation of the past. The pages of our friendship since then tell a remarkable story. Today, our relationship has overcome the hesitations of history, comfort, candor, and convergence define our conversations. What I wanted to underline is hesitations of history. How do you see this in the light of the recent past, Mohanji, where another leader from India, Rahul Gandhi from Congress, caused aspersions on Indian democracy itself? And there were questions raised about human rights situation in India, etc. Then I will also add the spokesperson of White House said, Nitinji, that it is a big deal that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has agreed to take questions. So, all in the light of the criticism which was there for India as well as for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, and in the aftermath of what he could accomplish and the kind of impression that he generated in these 3 4 days here in America, Moji.
So you bring up a very important point, Ashokji. It is always, said that India is not in danger from outsiders. India is in danger from its insiders. It is considered very fashionable, to be anti-India, and that's kind of, the colonial leftover, that we are dealing with. It was Lord Macaulay, who had said that if you really want to control India, you make the Indians think that their scriptures, their language, their culture is very, very inferior, and by copying a Britisher, a Babu, you are considered a person of the upper echelon. Now that mindset is still propagating in India, although it's generally on the decline after Modi ji has stepped up. So the comments that Rahul Gandhi made, and recently Pramila Jaipal and others have made, and even ex-president Barack Obama have made, are basically an attempt to destabilize India, to make it a kind of a not rise with the swelling wave that is in the country right now. We just have to deal with this, as time goes on. These things, will kind of, find their way out of the mindset of the Indian public, because generally India is very upbeat. about the pride and the honor that Prime Minister Modi ji has instilled in the Indian diaspora, and that is how it will prevail. I'll just note one thing that Modi ji said in his inaugural speech to the two houses, sorry, to the joint Congress. He said, "I bring to you greetings of 1.4 billion people, of India." Now that is such a nice and positive way to let the American government and the American audience know that India is no small country. It's 1/6 of the world's population, and we bring to you greetings of 1.4 billion people. So it has many connotations. For example, hey, we are a huge market for you guys. We are a huge force to reckon with. We are also the oldest civilization. Modi ji did with, as you Ashok ji said, he recited several shlokas from the Gita and the Vedas. And he brought out the tremendous and the depth and the breadth of knowledge he has of the Indian scriptures, and how the Western world can benefit from them. So he put things in perspective, and kind of set the ground, if you will, for India and the Indian diaspora to be kind of respected even more in the United States.
So among so thank you, Modi, and among several standing ovations that Prime Minister Narendra Modi received, he also highlighted the emphasis which India and his government gives to the Constitution, and I quote again Prime Minister Modi saying, 800 million of my countrymen may exercise the freedom of franchise once every 5 years, but all the 1.25 billion of our citizens have freedom from fear, a freedom they exercise every moment of their lives. He also remembered Martin Luther King and the approach of Mahatma Gandhi ji, and what I feel indirectly, he definitely draw attention towards America's role in combating terrorism. Uh, but the charge, or the the question about treatment or unfair treatment of minorities by Modi government without any sort of objective study and analysis, it lingers with him, and people still connect wherever he goes. And even while they are writing a story in 2023, they will refer to what happened in 2002, and that too in a lopsided manner. So Nitinji, that narrative, as you have observed in Indian media, with respect to what Prime President Obama mentioned, as well as Mohanji referred to some of the Indian American congressmen and people who boycotted his presence in the Congress. But in the larger scheme of things, if you like what was happening in terms of the warmth which was visible, palpable in frames where President Biden and First Lady were sort of greeting him, or he was carrying him, putting his hand on his shoulder, etc., etc., and the little bit of lighter moments on stage in the state dinner. Where do you see people pay more attention to or more importance to? And allow me to add, I was reading a very respected intellectual and India centric Rajiv Mehrotraji mentioning that President Biden and Obama are playing like good cop, bad cop. Do you believe that? Call it a theory or hypothesis. He said you should pay attention to this. And as a layman, though I'm kind of hosting the show at Moni, I would give more importance to the guy who is holding the office, not the one who is out of the office. How Indian media seems to be treating it, Nitinji.
Again, you will see two very clear sections of the media. One section of the media is not talking about what Sabrina Siddiqui asked much. They just mention of it, or the boycott by some of the members, or the 76 members writing a letter. It's just a mention, nothing more than that. But we have to understand that people in America, as well as people in India, will have to play their own politics. So there are sometimes political compulsions to find something which, if it not black, then at least gray. Otherwise, how will you survive in the politics? If you talk about in general, I think the mood about this visit has been very much upbeat. The media coverage is very positive. Only a fraction of media which has its own motives, and some part of the media says that media coverage is only what anyone would pay not to be shown. Everything else is PR. So that kind of a mindset will always look for something which is not right to be focused upon. I have
So,
never seen even a single country in the world where everything is perfect. And I think India will have some imperfect moments. It's not Modi or anyone else. Every country, a country as large as India, will have something or other going wrong. And we are not shying away from that. Every life has to matter. And yes, that's the message. And if there is anything which is not going right, the government will should be held responsible. But internal politics and politics of a country's prime minister when he is traveling abroad has to be separated, I think.
so I'll since just a few minutes left, and I would also confess, when I say confess in the terms of positive side, that I was very excited, charged by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit, and his address were, I mean, he mesmerizes you with his oratory skills and the kind of words which his script writers drafted for his different address, bringing not just information and the potential cooperation on concrete terms, but also the sheer joy of his expression. And Monji, you were present at the concluding session, which from where he directly went to to the airport. So, just a minute, share your impressions of the mood that was there, the kind of energy that you felt in the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Monji.
Sure. So, yeah, I was very fortunate to attend the dinner that was held for the Indian diaspora, and Prime Minister Modi addressed the Indian diaspora. He also took pictures, with us. So that was, the highlight of the moment. But in the usual Modi ji style, he was supercharged. The evening started with Mary Miliband singing the Indian national anthem, and what was so touching was, and no pun intended, she actually touched Prime Minister Modi's feet before starting the national anthem, and Prime Minister Modi was a little bit, taken aback, and he tried that she would not touch his feet, but she did. It was such a rare sight for an American, for whom touching somebody's feet is not in their DNA, but then still that shows the amount of respect that she has for him and the Indian culture. So she started off the evening by singing the Indian national anthem, and another Indian girl
So
sang the American.
yeah, I'm sorry, we kind of running out of time, but
Sure.
I just felt if we hear a few words from you, because it was so uplifting and he was so calm, composed, though he had a very busy, tight schedule, but there was joy almost flowing from what he was saying, and some of the remarks, the way he delivers them, you feel like he's a part of you, even if you are not present there. So I think that he's blessed, or whichever way it is. But we'll have more conversation about Modi impact down the line. I appreciate you joining me, Mohanji and Nitinji, for
Thank you
this
very much, sir.
short catching up on PM Modi's visit. This is Ashok Vyas, thanking each and every one of you, as well as wishing great things to happen for America and India both, as well as for the world and world peace. Namaste.